Maybe not reflect.
Okay. Okay, we can. I think we can begin now. Asso, Jean-Julien. Yes. Sure.
Yes.
Perfect. Bon, let's begin because we don't have a lot of time, of course, to cover everything from Pega. So first of all, we really want to thank you to give us this opportunity to speak with the architect community. For us, Pega architects are very, very important. We strongly believe like they are very the key pillar for every digital transformation. So again, thank you very much for that. So maybe next slide, Peter. So we prep an agenda. We try to cover as much as we can into a short period of time. So on the first part, of course, introduction, company overview, covering by Peter and I, platform architect, of course, covering by Ed, who is a principal enterprise architect, and the last part, Pega GenAI Blueprint, AI Vision and Product, covering by Peter, who is the lead scientist and director from our AI lab. And of course, we do not hesitate to write up the question for us on the chat. We're gonna maybe let 5 minutes at the end of the session to try to reply as much as we can. Next slide, please. Yeah. I think this part is covering by you, Peter, so I give you the lead. Thank you.
Awesome, and thanks for having us here today. Yeah, so I'm heading up Pega's AI lab. I'm also the lead scientist for Pega, and 1 day a week I'm also assistant professor in AI at Leiden University. And I report to our CTO, Don Sherman. And being an AI guy, maybe you know, these AI people, they run around and they tell you, just give us all your data and give us all your processes and all your systems, and we'll throw in a bunch of agents, and then some miracle will happen and you'll have applications that take care of all your needs. Well, don't trust those people, because you all know that in large complex enterprises, you need auditing, you need reliability, you need predictability. Ultimately, you need to have control. So really what the vision is for Pega is to help organizations to march towards this autonomous enterprise. I'll be talking about it later, but the key idea is if we can have autonomous cars, why can't we have autonomous enterprises that self-optimize towards their goals, but do it in a way where you're organized around the work that needs to happen. It's architected for reliability, governance, continuous improvement. Ed will go into the architecture and build on best practices so that it's both highly automated, highly intelligent, but it's also controlled. And that's, of course, really, really important. Now, and we do that across a couple of markets. So I'm passing the ball back to Anthony just to talk for 2 slides about where we operate and to give one particular client example.
Thank you very much, Peter. So the real question here is how, I would say, how you qualify Pega, what makes us really unique into the market. It's very straightforward. You know, Pega is the AI decisioning and workflow automation platform. So our agentic orchestration enables the organization to design, automate, and optimize across customer engagement, customer service, operation, and legacy transformation. So because of the time, we will not have it to cover every aspect that you can see on the screen. So we decided to focus on one topic, which is the legacy transformation. As you can see just below the customer service operation and so on, we have a lot of success with a lot of clients. As you can see, Vodafone, who achieved significant profit through improving customer decision. You can see also 11 Health, we are able to reduce average handle time by 3 minutes, and Lloyd Bank, 30% of efficiency gain. Plus, for legacy transformation, we were able to consolidate 500 workflow into one modular cloud platform. So as I said before, we're going to focus on legacy transformation. And we choose one client because we've done that with a lot of clients, but we wanted to choose a specific client, which is, I would say, simply the most advanced in AI worldwide, which is Google. Okay, Google is a great example of a customer using Pega for their operation network. Google, I would say, has been experiencing rapid growth across all areas in their business. However, this growth, combined with the complexity and global scope of the operation, lead to several challenges. They were struggling to meet their promises while overloading high-value developers with internal support system tasks. And as a result, inconsistent processes and systems emerged, often requiring manual workaround. The solution, based on Pega, allowed them to deliver automation, innovation, and scalability at speed. It effectively replaced existing legacy tracking and network management technology, bringing much needed efficiency and consistency to their operation. So this is the first return of experience, and you might ask, what is the architecture behind? So that's why I'm gonna give the hand to Ed.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So just to introduce myself, my name is Ed Hollins. I've worked with Pega as an enterprise architect for too many years now, way too many. But I've had a lot of experience with Pega over the years as how it's grown out. I've also worked for various other kind of big software vendors. I've worked for IBM and Microsoft back in the day, just to kind of give you some of my potted history. This slide that I'm showing you now is trying to summate the entirety of the Pega platform in a single slide. I have had a customer where we were doing a workshop and we never got past this slide. It literally was like 24 hours spent just on this slide. Let's not do that. Just going to try and get through it very quickly with you, and then try and pull out one of the facets that I think makes Pega application architecture somewhat unique. So if we look at this slide, the kind of core capabilities are what you can see in the colored band in the middle. The low code, the intelligence, the automation, the case management. Historically, if you've ever come across Pega, we functioned very heavily in the automation and case management. We were a BPM tool and then an IBPM tool. Case management was always baked in from the very beginning, and low code was always one of the central tenets of what we were trying to achieve. The thing that made us slightly unique in this environment is low code is often brushed with a stigma of low code is kind of simple. It's good for simple processes and applications. We found ourselves very much in the niche where we were building enterprise applications using low code as a platform. So we've built the most complex systems using this platform as the base criteria. And that's what really kind of made us stand away from our competition, is just how we could actually do things which were very intricate, very customized, and needed to be changed very quickly to an enterprise organization. So if we look at what we have there, we have low code. In a nutshell, everything that's built in Pega, there's a UI that is also your development environment, which is Pega. You are presented with the forms that you fill out, drop-down lists, type ahead, all that kind of stuff. You're not coding at any point. You've just got some simple syntactic stuff, and most of it's drag and drop and pulling down lists. The idea is that then renders to XML, and that XML is then stored in a database. And in real time, that's then deployed to the application server and executed directly from there. And that will play into slides that I show you later. Just kind of keep that in the back of your head. The other thing to kind of point out is that when Pega talk about rules, we're talking about every artifact that exists within an application. So we would talk about a rule being a UI rule or an authentication rule or an integration rule. We just use it as a component of a Pega application. So similarly, for instance, within intelligence, we've already had BRE, we've had kind of business rules engines that have been in Pega for a long time. We've extended that with kind of fuzzy logic and customer decision hubs that allowed us to do decisions at a mass scale. And we're now increasing that even more with what Peter's going to be talking about later around the Gen AI kind of capabilities that have been introduced into Pega. But all of these are considered kind of rules and artifacts of a Pega application. The automation and case management, like I said, historically very much in the center of how we build applications, and we'll go into that into the next slide as well. I just wanted to kind of say that colored central bit, that's the key to how we build our applications. But where do we see our sweet spot? Our sweet spot really is the channels that we introduce. So whether that's web self-service coming through a web form, or whether that's a mobile application, whether it's web chat, whether it's email, it doesn't matter where it kind of comes from. It's always triggering the same process. So we find that we're really good at basically being orchestrating channels, right? So if customers come in and they're on their mobile phone and they're using a web app and they're talking to us, and then we pop up a dialogue and they can start talking, that's still using the same process, the same logic, the same rules to calculate the results that come out of that. And then similarly, if they then call the call center, the operator on the other end of that call will be looking at exactly the same application and see the same decisions. And you're not going to get a discontinuous experience as you kind of go through. And lastly, integration. We could spend the entire time here. I'm not going to steal all of Peter's time, but integration, we support open APIs, we support API gateways, we support streaming technologies, so Kafka and PubSub and all that kind of stuff. We support BigQuery, Bigtable. We have the chops to be able to point if we need to, but also use an orchestration, microservice architecture, event-driven architectures, if that's what is most appropriate within your organization. Okay, if you can skip on to the next one. So when I was talking about building applications, So when I was talking about building applications, I was talking about how we, you fill out a form and that's rendered as XML and then that's stored. The other metaphor that we use is stages and steps. So when you're building an application, as you'll see Peter building out with the blueprint that's going to come on a little bit later, we are literally giving you a graphical representation of each stage is a part of your process, and each step underneath there is actually an individual process, a BPM representation of what's going on within there. That might be just rendering a form, but it might be a whole complex subcase. It can be anything. But we hide all that complexity within this kind of metaphor, stages and steps, as the central building point of your application. So behind each one of these would be an XML rendition, which is put into a database. That rendition is then grouped together into what's called a rule set, and that rule set is versioned. And you can then version multiples of those. But as we come on to the next slide, Peter, if you can jump onto the next one for me. This ties in very heavily to one of the things that makes Pega very unique, and that is what we do at runtime to determine what is the correct rule that needs to be run during an application execution. So it doesn't matter what the actual channel is. The channel basically says, okay, I need to run this rule. That could be, I'm going to authenticate, or I'm going to show this web form. It could be, I want to run this integration. Doesn't matter. It comes in and it talks to the Pega engine, and the Pega engine then executes I think it's a 16-step algorithm, which then determines which rule in the database is the one that actually needs to be executed in order to service that requirement. So what it then does is it goes into the database, it uses that algorithm to find the exact rule that it needs, it moves that to the application server, the XML is then compiled into Java, executed, and then cached. So any next execution that comes in will just look at the cache, and it'll be just doing an is dirty check to the database to see whether or not that's still the latest version of the rule. What that means is in real time, you can circumstance rules. You can say, if this is the case, If I've come in and it's a mobile query, I want to present this UI. If I'm coming in to, I don't know, a lending application or whatever it actually is, I want to use this currency and this conversion rate. And all of that can be circumstanced by country code or whatever, just entirely through this rules resolution algorithm. And that's what kind of makes us unique. So if you flip over to the next one for me, Peter. What that means is that when you're building your application, and we're using the stages and steps again, literally in real time, we are determining what is the next step that actually should be done for each person. And that's kind of hooked off your access group, your kind of your role effectively. So you might have an operator who's running the same application. One is in France, and they'll be using local rules for France. And the next application over, someone sitting in Germany, they're running the same application, but it's circumstancing those rules based on what you're at. And people in real time can go in there and change those rules, and that is instantly reflected back in the application. Now, whether that's going to be your DevOps pipeline or not, we have people who will modify rules, and it's fed straight into the pipeline and goes through a deployment, does all the testing, and then it's deployed within hours of actually that change being made. So we do find ourselves in a very unique, very agile way of deploying. And I think I've tried to summarize very quickly what I think is unique to Pega in terms of how quickly and rapidly we can build applications, but also how, something that's very complex can be modeled very quickly, but changed so that if I go in there and change a rule, it's deployed instantly and it can come straight back. I see some questions there.
Yeah, no, there's no questions at the moment,
okay.
Ed.
That was you. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
In which case, I'm fine. I'll leave it there, Peter. I'll let you take over from this point, I think.
Okay, thanks, Ed. No burning questions for Ed? Okay. If there's none, I'll just crack on. No? All right. So what I would like to do now is we're entering more the AI domain. And I have two major parts. Like first, I want to talk a little bit more about something we call GenAI Blueprint. And GenAI Blueprint is our capability to ideate applications. Yeah. So really the upfront process of going from requirements into an outline of a prototype or of a design of those workflows and journeys and personas and data models that would give you a head start to build an actual application. And you can provide context to this in terms of documentation and workflows and data models, integration points, and they can all be taken into account when this prototype application is being built. Yeah, so it's really to help, let's say, the business analyst, your clients, etc., to accelerate on the requirements and the design of more the functional part. And then in the next stage, of course, the real work for the architects would kick in. And it's being used quite heavily by our clients. Google was already mentioned. Actually, there we took a legacy implementation of Pega as an example and said, like, hey, how could we renew this, right? So we worked with the ops team in Dublin. They never had seen GenAI Blueprint before, but also the team in California. And we did a hybrid session where we were ideating on, let's say, a new version of that particular application. And we built multiple ones in parallel, and there was a little bit of voting going on, a little bit of competition. And then based on the preferred prototype, ideated further on that particular prototype. And ultimately, that formed the basis of the renewed, modernized version of the application that already went live. Yeah, so that's Google as an example, but also Capgemini has heavily been using GenAI blueprints. There's probably people here in the audience who have created blueprints because in total over 2,200 blueprint apps have been created by Capgemini. And they also have formed the basis for developing or improving industry solutions that Capgemini already built on top of Pega in fraud detection, investigation, prevention, group benefits, smart underwriting, etc. It also even led to a joint win in the insurance domain in North America recently, where GenAI Blueprint was heavily used by Capgemini and Pega to win that new business. And I'm going to give you a quick demo. So I'm just gonna pause sharing here, and then I'll just share my full screen. Okay, screen, there we go. You should be seeing the first screen now of the of GenAI Blueprint. Give me a shout if not. Like I said, you basically take as a starting point some rough requirements. You can upload context, documents, etc., and then we'll ideate a new application. So in this example, let's say it's a manufacturing client in aerospace and defense. Now, I did type in here Capgemini just to showcase to you how the actual branding would return here. You know, if it would be Airbus, you would see Airbus logos. If it would be Siemens, you would be seeing Siemens logos. Yeah, but it's just also to show off the branding a bit. You can see here in the first step, it identifies, you know, what are the important workflows, the important Pega case types, as we call them in Pega, that might be relevant for this particular application. So you can see supplier onboarding, purchase order management, inventory management, and with generate more, I can actually generate more case types on the fly. And then in the next step, it will actually automatically use GenAI to generate best practice workflows for each of those case types. Yeah, so here we are in supplier onboarding. You can see here the stages and steps that Ed was talking about that we would go through when onboarding a supplier. Yeah, gather supplier details, background checks, does it meet the criteria, a bit of a decision point, etc., etc. And of course, any element here, we can, if we want, we could actually change that, you know, add steps, delete steps, change the prompt, regenerate it all. Yeah, so there's all kinds of elements that we can change here. And we can also have a look at the data model that was generated here on the fly. So this is a suggested data model that could be used for this particular case type. Yeah. And if I just switch to these other case types, I'll get the life cycles and the case data models that are associated with those particular cases. Now let's move on a bit. We can then also have a look at the actual data objects that are being proposed. Here again, you know, we can use that GenAI either to make manual changes or regenerate parts with GenAI, or generate personas. What are the particular personas that would interface with this particular application? And again, you know, we can just generate more on the fly if we want to. You can just try that out for yourself. And I can also get a bit of a view of what would that experience be like if we would be interfacing with this centralized architecture with that same workflow, the same case life cycles across different channels. What would a desktop application look like for an employee? Also note the nice Capgemini branding here now, but maybe also the same process through the eyes of a mobile app, integrated into Salesforce perhaps, integrated in a customer service desktop. So we're primarily talking about the underlying Pega platform, but we offer these out-of-the-box applications such as Pega Customer Service for CRM and tons of other applications, or web self-service, as you can see here, again with the Capgemini branding in this case, or maybe some interactive chatbot that we are talking to. And we can also see, you know, what if we want to use just at the API level and talk to these case types, to these APIs, what that would actually look like from that point of view. Yeah, and of course we can, you know, whatever, we can make changes here also around. Well, we'll have a look at a different case type. For example, if I go back to, let's say, supplier performance evaluation, then to, let's say, to the desktop again, then now I'm actually in this supplier performance evaluation workflow. Yeah, and I can step through it, but I won't do that for now in the interest of time. And then ultimately, that gives me like a full document of what this application looks like. We can also share that with other people. We can download a PDF, but most importantly, we can also download a blueprint and we can actually import that into a real Pega platform application to further develop that application from there. Yeah. So that's the idea about GenAI Blueprint. Overall, over 100,000 GenAI blueprints have been generated so far. But Capgemini is one of the leading partners in this exercise as well. The next thing that's up with Capgemini in this area is also to really give Capgemini the ability to, in addition to, on a application by application basis, you can already see that you can feed in all the requirements and things like that. But in the background, we can also set up a knowledge base of all kinds of Capgemini best practice that will be taken into account when you generate the application. Yeah, so then you would be generating the application not just according to Pega best practice, but also all the best practice from Capgemini. Yeah, so that gave you kind of a short intuition of both Pega GenAI Blueprint, but also what a Pega platform application actually looks like. Okay, so let me just now go back to the presentation, and I'll just continue where I left it off. Yeah, while it's coming up. Let me just resume from where I left it off. Yeah, so in that sense, you can see that this is a very nice example how we can really help our clients to transform their legacy, but also to find new application areas for Pega. Also, large COEs in our customers, they also use it to drive internal demand for putting even more applications and workflows and decisions on top of Pega. And it's also a nice combination of, workflow, the muscle on one side, but using the power of AI, GenAI in this case, to ideate these applications. If you have any questions, just throw them into the chat. In the final block now, I'm going to, open Pandora's box a little bit more in terms of all the AI capabilities that we actually provide. I'll do that a little bit less now from the architecture point of view, but I am going to talk about hardcore product capabilities, right? So don't worry. So there's more than enough kind of hard evidence that will come your way, though I will kick it off with also sharing our vision for AI, but also, what kind of future vision of the enterprise that it could actually unlock. Yeah, if you have any questions, just throw them into the chat. Now, we all know that AI, is really changing the world, and particularly Gen AI in the last couple of years has been a big thing. Yeah, and you can see here that it's not just us that we say, well, AI is really changing enterprises, but Pega on the flip side is also getting the recognition from top analysts to be really one of the top AI companies out there. Even though there's companies here that are maybe 2 orders of magnitude larger than Pega, like the likes of Google, Microsoft, Nvidia. But we were really proud to be there in that top 10. But the main question, of course, is why are we there? Yeah, and the main reason for that is that we're combining this brain and muscle together. So we really focus on making not just on having cool AI, but really how can you make that actionable? How can you put it into a process in an interaction so that it has impact? Yeah. So, and that's not just about improving the processes that you're running today. Ultimately, it should also help you to transform the enterprise into some future enterprise that you could be. Yeah. But then the question becomes like, hey, what is the future vision of an AI-driven enterprise? And with that, I'm coming back to this idea of the autonomous enterprise, right? So the autonomous enterprise, like I said, the idea is, hey, if we can have autonomous cars that self-optimize towards certain goals, why can't we have autonomous enterprises? And in a self-driving car, we are still in charge. The business, the customer is still in charge. We set the goals. I want to go somewhere as quickly as possible, or save some fuel, or take a touristy route, but then the car goes to work for me. Yeah, so it needs to sense information in real time. Yeah, noisy information. Maybe here it needs to see like, oh, there's this little spot on the left. Is that a is it just noise, or is it the bike, someone on a bike that I need to evade? Yeah, and an autonomous car needs to make these decisions hundreds of times per second, because there could be a car in front of you that's taking a right, and you need to evade that car. But it also then needs to take action. Yeah, push the brake or turn the wheel. So it's a constant loop of sense, decide, and act, and learn and optimize. That allows the autonomous car to operate, right? So, and in that sense, the autonomous enterprise is the same thing. It's really using the combination of AI and automation in the sense, decide, act loop to optimize towards certain business goals. Yeah, and the AI that we can use for this is not just, Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Let's see. Yeah, we're on mute. Oh, we're not on mute yet. Someone is causing an echo.
Yeah, I think
Okay, now it's better.
If you can put you,
it's fine.
Be on mute, please.
Thank you. So the question is like, what kind of AI can we actually use for this? And of course, everyone here, when people hear AI, they think ChatGPT, generative AI. And that's, of course, that was a big game changer. We can compare that a little bit to creative AI, just like we have our right brain as humans, where we're making, creating creative output. That's maybe where generative AI and derived technologies like agent technology actually fit. Yeah? But there's tons of other AI as well, like similar in humans, we use our left brain to make smart decisions, maybe to predict, if I take particular actions, which one will be best, what's going to change in future, indeed making sense of all the data that's flying around and turning that into automated, optimized decisions to take the next action and to learn from it as well. And of course, the best AI is if we use both, right? So if I map that back to actual capabilities, in this sense, decide, and act loop, then you, in the sensing side of the house, you can think of having the ability to do things like making sense of multimodal data. We have voice-to-text capabilities in voice AI. We're launching new document processing capabilities in 25.1. Natural language processing to deal with unstructured data, either with more classical machine learning or with Gen AI. Predictive analytics, detecting complex event processing, detecting patterns in streaming events that are coming in through Kafka or WebSockets or whatever it is, and also sensing what's going on, within processes, using process mining to detect maybe where work gets stuck or where non-compliant routes are being taken. Yeah, and then combining that with the ability to give a response through Gen AI, or making a decision through real-time decisioning and learning in online fashion which decisions, which actions lead to the best outcomes. And if we take those decisions, the good thing is here, this is where the brain of Pega meets the muscle of Pega. We can use workflow capabilities, case management capabilities, robotics capabilities to take those actual actions, but also to measure the outcome. Did we do the right thing? And feed it back to the brain so that the brain can learn. Yeah. And there's an entire architecture that underpins this. Ed already started to talk about it a little bit, but just to talk a little bit more architecture, let's say more on the right brain side of the house, on the Gen AI side of the house. And we have this architecture where we support the major providers like OpenAI, Google, AWS Bedrock, but we provide also an abstraction layer to abstract away from what are the exact models that you're using in a particular Gen AI driven feature. Yeah, and that allows you to control Gen AI centrally, maybe to filter out PAI data before you send it over to a Gen AI service, right? And have all kinds of other forms of centralized control. And then also allows you to leverage the low-code capabilities of Pega to build all kinds of Gen AI-driven features like very, very fast with that low-code platform. And that's, of course, something that the Gen AI providers are missing, right? Because they have great Gen AI services, but they don't have a low-code platform. And we use that to create, to build all kinds of new features that are Gen AI-driven, but our clients use that and our partners use that as well to build out particular features in these apps. All right, so let me bring that a bit more to life. Again, if there's a question, just throw it in the chat. I'm having a look in the chat as well, and I can take some questions as I go. But I'm going to bring this a little bit to life within those particular types of application areas where we operate. So let's maybe start indeed with intelligent operations, intelligent automation, legacy transformation. Now, what we've already seen is this capability of Pega Blueprint to actually take legacy, take requirements, take information from legacy transformations and turn that into the design, maybe the functional design for a Pega application. What are the workflows? What are the data models? What are the personas that will be required to build a particular application? And then we can actually import it into Pega, and we can use the power of AI we have an AI low-code powered kind of experience to further build out that application. And then maybe you have a running application. Again, AI can be used to coach end users through resolving these processes, workflows, journeys in the best way possible. And we can monitor these applications as and when these processes and cases are running to find opportunities for improvement, or maybe to make smart decisions. So I'm just going to show you a couple of those capabilities with some real screenshots of real product. First, let's say we want to onboard, we want to bring on develop a new application. We already saw GenAI Blueprint, but one of the sources that can also feed into GenAI Blueprint is our capability, which is called Pega Process Mining. So you can have a legacy application. Maybe there's a log of what actions are being taken. We can consume that log and we can reverse engineer what are the real processes behind this log. On top of that, process mining can already identify, hey, there's a lot of rework. Work is being passed back at the end of the process to the start, and you're losing a lot of time in that step. So, or there's maybe another example here on the right, where you see a case is bypassing everything and jumping straight to approval. That's maybe non-compliant. And so we can also use Pega Process to clean up that picture, and then we can actually provide it into something like Pega Blueprint alongside requirements, data models, data structures, integration points, and to ideate this application. And like I said, then we go to the implement step. And so we can actually make it part of our low-code design experience, and we can further build out that application, but also the real architecture work here happens where we need to map these logical data models to physical ones, for example, or to integration points to take real actions. And in this low-code application development environment, we also have AI-driven features that help you to understand, like, how do I do certain things in Pega? By having RAG-based systems sitting on top of our product documentation, and they can take you immediately to where you need to make a change, but also to any artifact you're building on, a data model, an integration point, a workflow, suggest all kinds of changes you could make to that artifact, or create test scripts that help you to automatically kind of test the application. And so it's really a GenAI-driven low-code experience. Okay, so then we have a working app. Now, end users are now going to use this app, right? I'm maybe a claims worker. I need to adjudicate a claim, or I need to underwrite a new sales opportunity. Or I'm a salesperson, like in this example, and I'm working in an application that's built on top of Pega, like Pega Sales Automation. And you can see here, I'm being coached towards, like, how can I best resolve, how can I win this particular deal? That's the main goal for a salesperson. So, and that's an example of a coaching tip that an agentic coach can then give to the salesperson in this example to complete this work and to get to a deal. But for an underwriter, it would be, how can we underwrite a particular piece of work in record time, but also making sure that we minimize any risk. Or a claims person is, how can we automatically adjudicate a claim, or maybe adjudicate the claim as quickly as possible, so that we can help our customers with the issues they're having, but also making sure that we minimize claims leakage or fraud. There's all kinds of other AI-driven tools that our agentic capabilities can leverage here. One example I mentioned are these buddies. So we have a thing that's called Knowledge Buddy, and essentially it's a ChatGPT interface for a particular like style interface for a very particular domain. Yeah. So if we link it to our Pega product documentation, it can answer any question how to do something in Pega. But in this example, I put it on top of a bunch of regulatory documents for know your customer. Yeah. And then we can ask it a highly technical question around know your customer, and it will give us the answer based on those documents. And those documents could also be documents that were never on the web. Yeah. So something that the GenAI model could not know about. Yeah. So there's a big bank in the Netherlands. They have 3,000 KYC analysts. They're working those cases, and we built a body on top of their work instructions. Yeah. So a new case comes in that some KYC analyst needs to check whether there's something going on. And immediately the analyst will get advice based on the whole context of the case and particular questions they might have, how to deal with that particular case. Okay, and so this is how we're coaching these end users through the process, but then we get into this monitor, optimize and improve stage, right? So, and again, we can leverage things like Pega process mining because it also works really well on Pega processes. We can consume external processes, but we can also put it on top of Pega processes. It just works automatically. And you can see here, we even have a little chatbot, an AI chatbot, that helps us to understand a particular process. We're chatting with our process. Yeah. So it's highlighting, for example, we asked it, hey, where are the biggest bottlenecks in this process? Yeah, and it gives us a couple of examples. And one of the examples is there's a lot of rework, work is routed back from final stages to early stages. And this is costing you this many man-year. So it's really helping us to quickly understand where are the biggest opportunities for improving this process. Yeah, and we can make this even more fine-grained. Yeah, maybe we want to make intelligent decisions during a process. Yeah, we do that with something we call process AI. It's using the power of real-time decisioning and online learning to really make these hyper-personalized decisions or hyper-specific decisions within a particular case, within a particular instance of a process. Yeah, if it's a claim, you could say, well, is this a complex claim, or who should we route it to, or should we approve it? Any of those type of decisions. Yeah, and here I have an example. This is maybe some approval process. In the beginning, you can see there's lots of green area in this hamburger. The green area is where the humans need to make all the assessments, because if we have simple business rules, there's only very few cases that we can automatically approve or decline. But what we can do, of course, we can use the intelligence of AI to look over the shoulders of our best case workers. And these adaptive self-learning models, they will learn on the fly, hey, what are cases that are in this gray area, but they typically get approved, yeah, or they typically get declined. And as we get more comfortable with the quality of those models, then we can decide to have higher levels of auto adjudication. Yeah, and we can also give that advice back to the human workers for that small number of cases where humans still need to make that assessment. And like I said, this is kind of the example of an approval process, but there's many decision points in a process. Anywhere where you have these decision points, you can embed process AI, make smart decisions, and making sure that you can kind of learn automatically whether to go left or right. Okay, and so with that, like you can imagine that in the context of intelligent automation, we can support that end-to-end process. It also allows you to kind of go through a bit of a maturity curve, right? So where maybe at the start all work is manual, you use process mining to understand where the gaps are. Then you start to use case management to just orchestrate the work, even if it's purely manual. This will give you data understanding with process mining again. Where are the biggest bottlenecks? Well, then maybe you say, well, we have a lot of bottlenecks. Let's start to automate those steps. But at some point, just automation will not give you better results. You need to become smarter. So that's where you start to insert that intelligence. And then ultimately, you get to the autonomous stage where you're really getting closer to the autonomous enterprise, where you're self-optimizing towards those particular goals. Yeah, so that's a bit of an example of how that could be used in an intelligent automation context. Yeah. But to give you one more example of another context, I'm looking at customer service here. What could be the role of AI? Well, of course, maybe in as is, a lot of customer service work is all done by second tier or third tier agents. So there's a lot of bouncing back and forth of customer service issues. Things get lost in translation. Customers need to wait for a long time to get answers. Now, how can AI help? Yeah, of course, we can make work easier for the first level agents by using AI and helping them to deal with issues that normally only second tier could help. Yeah, and if we have that intelligence, then we can actually also use it to push work even further down and enable self-service to end customers or partners to resolve things without having to call up someone in customer service, or the holy grail to detect and predict customer service issues before they actually arise. Yeah, so that's something that you can then also use AI for. I had a small video here that was showing kind of how you can actually do this, where you have a desktop experience and we're using speech to text to automatically control the entire desktop for the agent and pull up all kinds of information from knowledge buddies and give tips how to resolve. So, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip over that particular video, because I do want to give you a little bit of peek into the future of where we are heading with AI, and particularly with the agentic future. Yeah, so I'm not talking about the entirety of AI, left brain and right brain. I'm focusing now a little bit more on right brain, and particularly the developments that we're seeing in terms of making Gen AI more autonomous and more agentic. Yeah, so and basically giving more autonomy to the Gen AI. If there's any questions, just post them in the chat. Yeah, and I'll pick them up as we go, even about what I just spoke about. Okay, but if we listen to some of the gurus in Gen AI, we have Andrew Ng here, and he's saying, well, we had, for instance, DeepSeek coming up with new LLMs. Everyone was in disarray. What's happening here? Models are becoming cheaper and cheaper, and this whole LLM services market from OpenAI, Google, Azure, etc., is being commoditized. But that's a good thing. That means that you have more choice and more models that you can use to get results, better results at lower cost. Yeah, the real benefit, the real value is more in the last mile. How are you going to use that intelligence in your applications, in your workflows, in your customer interactions to drive more benefit? Yeah, that's where the real value sits. So that's the point that he's making here. The sweet spot is really the application layer. That's the great place to be. And yeah, we spoke about how Pega has really been focusing always on actionable AI and using brain and muscle to bring that together and to take that intelligence and have some actionable, measurable impact on the workflow or a process. So that's exactly where we are. Yeah. But of course, to be able to do that, we also need to think about how can we make Gen AI itself more actionable, more autonomous. Yeah. And for that, let me just rewind the clock. I'll go back to 2023. We actually were, very, very early with bringing out all kinds of cool Gen AI features. But what was behind it technically was actually quite simple. Yeah, so let me explain what I mean. You can see here a wide range of use cases that we actually launched at PegaWorld 2023. In all those different areas, these were things that we already went live with in the 23 in that 23 Pega 23 version, and they were all Gen AI driven. Yeah, so very impressive. We're able to by sitting on top of these existing services and using the power of low code, we could very quickly develop those features. But technically, from an AI perspective, what's behind it? It was fairly simple. Yeah, that's why we could also develop really fast, because it was, let's say, dynamic prompts. You see an example here on the left-hand side. We have a feature in our marketing solution where you can generate new ads, based on particular inputs that you give. But what's behind it? It's just a dynamic prompt, a bit of a system prompt, where we say, hey, you're a creative person, you need to create new advertising content, and by the way, take these dynamic parameters into account, and then it would generate an advertisement like you see on the left-hand side. So really interesting. We can develop stuff real quickly, but technically we're using GenAI as passive service. Okay, so what could be a step up? Yeah, and this is something, and these are things that we developed last year a lot as well, by giving certain tools to GenAI to already make it a little bit more of an active participant. And one of the first things, well, actually the first version of this we already developed in 2023, is this idea of these buddies, right? So where you can, that's the ChatGPT kind of interface on top of specific domains. So if we have product documentation, we can ask it any type of question, and then it has two tools. Yeah, it has the documentation, it has a search engine. So what it will do, it will actually make a search, yeah, based on the question, and then it will take all these search results and then answer the question based on the search results. Yeah, so it's a clever use of tools, giving a little bit more power to GenAI to do its thing. So the final step that we then actually get into is more real autonomous agents. So why would we just stop at giving one tool or two tools to GenAI? We want to give it many tools, but then it needs to be smart enough to use GenAI to understand, like when it gets a request or a problem, what kind of problem is this? With very minimal context, it should paint a big picture and see what are the objectives that I need to achieve. And if it has like not just one tool, but 10 tools or 20 tools or whatever, it needs to figure out what is the plan to apply these tools to get to the end result. And also to use GenAI to parse, like while it's executing the plan, what is the feedback? Do I need to change my plans? Am I done? And give it back to the end user. Yeah, so already secretly around a year and a half ago, we built an agentic engine in Pega platform, and we experimented a lot with building features ourselves that were based on these agentic capabilities. Yeah, and now we're also in 25.1. We had early versions of this in 24, but in 25.1 we're heavily extending the configuration experience for those agents. Yeah, so if I have an agent like this, that's advising an underwriter to underwrite a particular piece of life insurance, it can use all kinds of tools in the background, knowledge, data, but also specific hard business rules it needs to apply to be able to do this. And we can actually configure that with an easy agent interface where we tell it, hey, what is your overall prompt? What is your role? But maybe also what kind of data sources do you have access to? Or ultimately, what kind of actions can you take? Yeah, and it will dynamically build a plan to apply these tools to get to the outcome. Yeah, so that's the real agentic capability. Yeah, and with that, we're moving into this area of these autonomous agents. All right, so much more about that at Pega World, and so where we will showcase many more of those examples. I would like to hand it back to Anthony to maybe moderate a little bit of the discussion and the wrap up here.
Yeah, I mean, we come to the time, so thank you everyone to assist to this session. Thank you a lot from Head, from Peter to allocate your time to try to really explain, because really we try to be concise to get the message, I would say, across in under an hour. So it was very challenging. We know that the session is recorded, so do not hesitate to spread the record internally. As Peter mentioned, Capgemini is the biggest partner in Europe. Okay, so if you need information regarding France, you can reach out Hugues, as you can see on the photo. He's in charge of Pega platform. If it's outside of France, do not hesitate to reach out to Niklas, who is our Pega CTO. On your behalf, if you need to contact, I will say, Pega directly, do not hesitate to contact me directly, and I will put you into the right hand internally at Pega. On your left, you see 3 different QR codes. The first one will link to our pages regarding every innovation on AI. On the second one, you will have access to Pega GenAI Blueprint, which is completely free and available for everyone. So do not hesitate to create your own Pega GenAI Blueprint and share it with your peers. And the last QR code is the video where basically Google make a testament on Pega, on their experience using Pega. Thank you very much. And I wish we have a question now. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just saying we're almost at the end, but we still have 3 minutes left. So
no problem. So do not hesitate to reach out to us for any question or information. Thank you all.
If you have questions now, feel free to ask them. That's what I was saying, more or less.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Anthony, if you don't
question
mind.
on the chat, so I mean, we'll keep in touch.
Okay. Yeah, Anthony, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in quickly at the end here. Thank you so much for putting this session together. It was very valuable. I'm the global partner lead for Capgemini at Pega. So you can, of course, reach out to your partner team as well. And Filippi, who is the local partner representative, or myself. I work very closely with Nicholas Janssen and the entire team at Capgemini. So again, thank you so much for your time today. Any questions at all, you can point them back through Anthony, or you can point them back through me, and we'll make sure that Peter is able to come back to you individually or collectively. So thank you.
Or Ed as well. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. And feel free to connect if you want to. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. It was very great, very complete.
De rien.
Thank you.
À la prochaine.
Merci.
Non, mais ça m'a fait rire, du coup, non, Est-ce qu'on a toujours Saint-Gobain qui était prévu? Ah non, ah d'accord.